Test, test.
Test.
Test 1.
Test 2.
Yes.
Test 3.
Okay, I think we're going to get started. Just in the interest of time and to make sure that we are able to end, A, on time, and B, make sure everyone has a good discussion here and that we were able to give a lot out of this last panel of the day. Thank you all for being here. My name is Kayla McGill. I'm a women, peace, and security expert. I've been working on women, peace, and security from a civil society, academia, and US government point of view for the last 10 to 15 years. I'm really honored to be here today. I want to give a quick shout out to the president and her team and all of those who made this forum possible. This is honestly one of my favorite places. Every time I come to Kosovo, I say I feel like I'm coming home, and it's because of the people, and it's because of forums such as this, where we are able to come together and discuss challenges, opportunities, and paths forward to working together to make the world more secure and safe for everybody. I'm going to very quickly talk about what our panel is going to be, but first I want to do a brief introduction, and by brief I mean I will say our esteemed panelists' names and then let them introduce themselves as they begin to speak. First we have, and apologies if I am wrong in the pronunciation, I practiced, but we'll see. First we have the Minister of Justice from Kosovo, Minister Hajduk. Then we have our special envoy and ambassador at large for women, peace, and security and empowerment of women in international organizations from Slovenia, Ambassador Darja. She has given me permission to refer to her as that. And then we have our amazing legislative policy analyst for New York City Council, Vera. So happy to have you here. Next we have our legal advisor for NATO, Darjo. So thrilled that you're here as well. And then we have an associate professor of constitutional law, Dr. Anna. We're really thrilled that you're here as well. This This panel is really meant to focus on legal lifelines. In our discussions, as we were preparing for this, we all determined this is a very broad topic. You can focus on this from a number of different ways, and because we have such a variety of experts here from different sectors, we're going to try and do just that. We're going to examine the effectiveness and challenges that come from international laws and policies that are designed to prevent violence against women, children, and really civilians in conflict zones. One of the things that I did want to point out at the beginning is that laws are nothing without action. We cannot create laws without action. We cannot implement laws without action. That seems very straightforward, very easy to say, but if we don't have people from all sides pushing for transformative policies, transformative laws, and then implementing that with people from all different sectors, all different walks of life, and expertise from various sectors and really regions and around the world, we're not going to be successful. We also need to ensure that our obligations from existing laws are operationalized and that future mandates are developed responsibly, and there will be tangible and positive change because of that. I am so excited to hear from all of our speakers today. I'm going to first turn it over to our minister, and hear a little bit more about a broad overview of some of this work and maybe some of your thoughts on these legal lifelines really that exist and why they do.
Faleminderit shumë. Të nderuar panelist, I will speak in Albanian. Të nderuar pjesëmarrës, zonja dhe zotrinj, është kënaqësi e veçantë për mua që t'jem këtu në mesin tuaj dhe t'ju mirëpresim dhe mirë se keni ardhur në Republikën e Kosovës, ku sot në këtë panel do të flasim për një temë thelbësore, pra për paqen e qëndrueshme. Përvoja në Kosovë na ka mësuar shumë mbi peshën e dhunës së luftës dhe po ashtu mbi plagët që lufta lë në shoqëri, veçanërisht për gratë, por po ashtu edhe për fëmijët. Dhuna seksuale gjatë luftës, zhvendosja e detyruar, vrasjet dhe zhdukjet me dhunë të antarëve të familjes, por po ashtu edhe traumat afatgjata, janë plagë që kërkojnë përgjigje të gjithanshme, kërkojnë përgjigje ligjore, kërkojnë po ashtu përgjigje institucionale, por edhe shoqërore. Dhe ndër vite, Bashkësia Ndërkombëtare ka ngritur kuadër të rëndësishëm ligjor, siç janë rezolutat e Këshillit të Sigurimit të Kombeve të Bashkuara për gratë, për paqen, për sigurinë, sidomos rezoluta 1325 dhe pasardhësit e saj. Në këtë kuadër, rezoluta pra që e përmenda e Këshillit të Sigurimit të Kombeve të Bashkuara, së bashku me rezolutat pasuese të agjendës gratë, paqja dhe siguria, përbëjnë bazë të fuqishme orientuese për politikë bërjen, por po ashtu edhe për reformën legjislative që është dashur ta bëjmë në Republikën e Kosovës. Ministria e Drejtësisë gjatë gjithë kësaj kohe ka qenë e përkushtuar në avancimin e mbrojtjes së të drejtave të njerëzit dhe zbatimin e standardeve ndërkombëtare për mbrojtjen e grave, por po ashtu dhe të fëmijëve. Kemi ndërmarrë hapa të qartë për integrimin e këtyre standardeve në kuadrin ligjor, por po ashtu edhe në secilin dokument strategjik që ne e kemi trajtuar. Dhe me përgjithësi jemi marrë edhe me drejtësinë tranzicionale dhe në këtë drejtim lejoni që t'i ndaj vetëm disa nga veprimet që ndërlidhen edhe me pyetjet që u adresuan. Së pari ne kemi miratuar strategjinë për drejtësinë tranzicionale, është një dokument që është bërë për herë të parë në Republikën e Kosovës 24 vite pas luftës, sepse këtë e kemi nisur punën para 2 viteve. Pra është me vonesë, por megjithatë është jashtëzakonisht i rëndësishëm. Është një dokument historik për Kosovën dhe që synon të adresojë trashëgiminë e luftës dhe të mbështesë viktimat me fokus të veçantë gratë, por po ashtu edhe rinin. Në këtë strategji kemi vendosur fokus të veçantë për mbrojtjen dhe fuqizimin e grave, përfshirë mbështetjen për të mbijetuarat të dhunës seksuale, dhe në këtë drejtim janë parapar 17 masa specifike brenda objektivit strategjik, gjithsesi sigurimi i drejtësisë tranzicionale me ndjeshmëri gjinore dhe adresimi i dhunës me bazë gjinore dhe diskriminimit. Dhe ndër elementet më të rëndësishme është përfshirja e vetë viktimave, të mbijetuarave dhe organizatave të shoqërisë civile në hartimin e strategjisë. Kështu politikat tona mund të jenë më të ndjeshme ndaj nevojave reale të tyre kur ato janë pjesë e secilës nismë që hartohet nga institucionet e Republikës Kosovës. Po ashtu kemi përforcuar legjislacionin vendor për harmonizimin e tij me standardet ndërkombëtare, në mënyrë që ligjet tona të reflektojnë qartë detyrimet që dalin nga instrumentet ndërkombëtare. Kemi bashkëpunuar ngushtë me organizata të shoqërisë civile, por po ashtu edhe me ato ndërkombëtare në ngritjen e kapaciteteve të institucioneve tona, në mënyrë që këto krime të trajtohen me ndjeshmërinë më të lartë, por po ashtu të trajtohen edhe në mënyrë profesionale. Nga përvoja jonë, kornizat ndërkombëtare janë shumë të rëndësishme për të ngritur standarde dhe për ndikuar politika shtetërore. Megjithatë, efektiviteti i tyre varet shumë nga angazhimi institucional për zbatim praktik, por po ashtu edhe të qëndrueshëm. Për të adresuar sfidat, ne kemi ndërmarrë disa hapa, pra kemi bashkëpunuar ngushtë me organizatat e shoqërisë civile, të cilat unë konsideroj janë zë i fuqishëm në Republikën e Kosovës. Në këto 26 vjet ishte jetik roli i organizatave të shoqërisë civile, veçanërisht atyre organizatave të cilat janë udhëhequr nga gratë apo udhëhiqen nga gratë, dhe ato kanë dëshmuar se mbrojtja e drejtave të njerëzit, krahas që është edhe detyrë institucionale, është edhe mision humanitar që kërkon përkushtim, që kërkon guxim, por po ashtu kërkon edhe empati. Përkundër traumave të pashlyeshme, të mbijetuarat e dhunës seksuale kanë treguar forcë të jashtëzakonshme për të ndërtuar një jetë të re dhe për të qenë të zëshme dhe pjesëmarrëse në zhvillimin dhe përmirësimin e politikave. Po ashtu kemi siguruar përfaqësim të grave në proceset e hartimit të strategjive dhe ligjeve, dhe gjithashtu jemi duke punuar për siguruar mbështetje të qëndrueshme buxhetore për zbatimin e këtyre politikave. Është jashtëzakonisht e rëndësishme që edhe ligjet që hartohen nga qeveria, nga kuvendi dhe që miratohen në kuvendin e Republikës së Kosovës, ato të gjejnë zbatim praktik. Edhe strategjia për drejtësinë tranzicionale, që është një dokument shumë i rëndësishëm që trajton nevojat e viktimave, jemi duke bërë përpjekje maksimale që secili nga rekomandimet, e që në tërësi janë mbi 100 rekomandime, të adresohet nga institucionet përgjegjëse apo organizata tjera. Pra, përmes kësaj strategjie, kemi parapar që mbështetja mos jetë vetëm e përkohshme, por të jetë afatgjatë dhe integruan politikat tona të mirëqenjes, por po ashtu edhe të drejtësisë. Për të mos e zgjatur më tepër, vetëm edhe në fund, për fëmijët e prekur nga lufta, fatkeqësisht pas luftës nuk ka pasur programe të posaçme të mbështetjes psikologjike. Andaj në strategjinë për drejtësinë tranzicionale kemi parapar edhe veprime që fokusohen tek rinia, sepse për ne është jetike që brezi i ri të mos i bardh plagët e së kaluarës. E dim që e kemi një rrugë të gjatë përpara, por jemi të përkushtuar për qasje gjithëpërfshirëse, për qasje humane, por po ashtu edhe për qasje të qëndrueshme ndaj të mbijetuarave të krimeve të luftës. Faleminderit edhe një herë, kjo është ndërhyrja ime e parë, pra në fjalën time të parë, dhe natyrisht që do të jemi hapur edhe për çështje tjera. Faleminderit.
Thank you so much, Minister. I think that a lot of what you said really gets to the heart and the core of the need for any policy and any law and any strategy to really be informed by those who, A, have experienced it, and B, will be impacted by it. And I also second your point on civil society in Kosovo being one of the strongest that I have ever experienced in my life. And I think that it's one of the reasons why there's so much here to go from that. I want to next go to Ambassador. I think that this is a great segue segue into some of the work that Slovenia is doing, then some of the importance of both the work you are doing on a national scale as well as international scale. Maybe you could walk us through some of that.
Thank you so much, dear. Well, thank you so much to organizers and Honorable President for inviting us and bringing us together to discuss these topics that are of utmost importance, I think, for the international community. Let me say that today we are speaking now at this panel about securing women and children. Well, yes, this is the most vulnerable group in armed conflicts. But at the same time, we have the most powerful tools to protect them. And those most powerful tools are in the international law, in Geneva Conventions and in other conventions. And this is why I believe that it's very important that we don't speak just about vulnerability, but about the power of transition. In previous panel, it was heard that women and children, they can be agent of change. And in this relation, I would like to stress that that is the answer, how to secure to provide security for women and children in those conflicts. We have also another very powerful instrument, and that is advocacy. Why I would like to speak about advocacy. This year, we are marking 30th anniversary of Beijing Plan of Action on gender equality and women's rights. And I would like to stress that gender equality, it's not a question of ideology. This is a part of human rights. Women's rights are a part of human rights. And gender equality is a part of a social justice. And I think that we can all subscribe to that. Of course, I cannot not to speak about my country. Why my country? First, when it comes to gender equality, we really have an excellent record. Right now, we have first elected president of the country, Speaker of the House, a woman, Minister of Foreign Affairs, a woman. But not just that. In the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, majority of diplomats were women. Not majority of ambassadors, less than 40%, but still, we are very close. But why it's for us the agenda Women, Peace and Security and 25th anniversary of Women, Peace and Security is important? Because we are members, elected member of United Nations Security Council. And one of our priorities is women, peace and security. And we take care for the last year and last 5 months and until the end of the year that the agenda of women, peace and security is present in the Security Council. We bring civil society to Security Council. Young women testify the horrible experience of war. We are chairing the Committee on Common Pledges, and we are mainstreaming this topic throughout our membership, of course with other members of the Security Council that share the same values with us. One of the most important mandates of the Security Council is the resolution established with 1088, the mandate on sexual violence in armed conflicts. And this is a mandated task of the Security Council. And this is why we support a special representative of Secretary General to report on all atrocity to Security Council, even in the situations where some of the permanent members are reluctant to hear her reports. And that is, let me say, that also this is reports of the Special Representative on Atrocities. It's a perfect platform to demand accountability and responsibility, and this that the perpetrators of the crimes are brought to the justice. I think that I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I loved your point about we have powerful tools that we need to be able to utilize and recognize, because there's power in these laws and these processes and these conventions, and we need to recognize them for what they are, which are these powerful tools, and utilize them moving forward. One point I think that segues very nicely into our next point, or our next panelist, is your point about advocacy being a powerful instrument, and that's also, I think, activism and civil society leaders being part of that as well. We all know Women, Peace, and Security was developed through decades of feminist activism, and that's why, honestly, we're here today, is because of those activists from civil society. And one point as well about the Women, Peace, and Security resolution, subsequent resolutions on conflict-related sexual violence, and I would love to hear about this a little bit more as well, but from our next panelist. But we know that WPS or conflict-related sexual violence is a continuum of violence against women, against girls, against marginalized members of society. How has that maybe been harnessed by some civil society actors and leaders, and how have you seen this work moving forward to really inform laws and to inform policy? And Vera, I will turn it over to you to kind of talk about this and where we can really see this impact.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the fellow panelists. And I would like start by thanking President Osmani for convening this important forum. She's a leader in the region, and I'm really proud that her and her staff are making this agenda one of the pillars of the government and governance in Kosovo. I am a policy analyst by trade, and I draft laws for New York City, one of the most progressive democracies in the world. But I won't talk about that. I'm here to talk about advocacy and what can we do to push these agendas. In clear language and in plain language, these resolutions and the agendas are sets of laws that we need to push forward. And we need to use whatever we can, whether the international communities, the local governments, lobby, civil society, and use plain advocacy from every corner that we can. Back in 2019, I met Vesfia Krasniqi-Goodman in New York when she testified in front of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And we co-founded something called Rally for Her Justice, a movement against sexual violence in conflict. And we created this hashtag, Rally for Justice, that soon was all over. People started talking about it, and when I say talking about it, it was something that people started to feel more comfortable, and stigma was still there. But we knew that we had to do more. We convened a lot of rallies in New York City and Washington, D.C., and I see Professor Domi here in the audience, who was a speaker in our rallies, and we did briefings in the U.S. Congress, and she was a speaker there as well, and Dr. Rashidi also, who's the director of KRTC, and a lot of the survivors. The important message that needs to come to this forum, for me personally, working in the legal field, is that we need to empower the youth in the country to advocate and to give them a voice and to give them space. We cannot just rely on the government. The government has their own sets of agendas. It's great when you have a president like President Osmani who makes it a priority, but across the world, I think it's the citizens, the youth, the students that need to create more space for speaking for these kind of agendas and taking matters into their own hands. And as a result of this Rally for Her Justice, we've been able to accomplish quite a lot. We have now a resolution that has been introduced in U.S. Congress, Resolution 26, in support of Vestia Krasniqi-Goodman, but also all the survivors of sexual violence in conflict. We've had incredible support. So far, we've had about 16 members of Congress, and I want to stress that in a time of political disturbance everywhere in the world, we have a bipartisan support. We have both aisles that have signed on the resolution. Important members of U.S. Congress, such as Republican Keith Self, who is the chair of Europe in the Foreign Affairs Committee, and others. I'm also grateful for the Albanian American community that is joining the cause and rallying with their members of parliament and making this a priority, which is something where we should all be united no matter what part of the aisle. I really want to commend the governance in Kosovo, and we have here the Minister of Justice. I've worked with her in the past. It's really important when we have women leading in these positions, and Kosovo is an example of that. We have the second president woman in Kosovo. First, as with any social issues, I think that we should encourage people to speak up, and we cannot be bystanders, whether in Kosovo, in the United States, or anywhere in the world. And I think that the stories need to be shared, and they need to be shared so often. I can recall that we've met with over 80 members of Congress and their staff, and there has been days that Vestia Krasniqi-Goodman has shared her story, her harrowing story, 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, which is very painful to do, but it's also very encouraging for others to hear what the survivors went through in Kosovo and the survivors around the world are coping with. And I think it's encouraging women to speak and encouraging more survivors to come out. It's commendable, and I salute KRTC on the work they did with the first male survivor. I think it's very important to have the broader aspect that not only women but also men and children were affected. I would leave it at that, and then we can intercept more as we go forward.
Thank you so much. I do also want to second your point on, I think you said it so eloquently, with any social issue, people should be able to speak up. And I think the way that you have fostered an environment with your work and with your partners in civil society, and that has enabled things such as a resolution to be brought forward and survivors to be able to speak their truth in the way that is safe and secure for them is so vital and so important to this work. And I also want to second that President Osmani and their team have not shied away from utilizing women's peace and security as a mechanism for hard security and statecraft. And I think that's something that is not talked about enough. A lot of times issues such as this are sometimes viewed as soft security or more humanitarian, and while they are rooted in a lot of that, this is a hard security issue. It affects individual security, which, as I know, I'm speaking to the choir here, but sometimes we gotta sing. It also is a hard security matter because it reflects national security. Thank you so much for our first 3 panelists. Amazing interventions. Now we're going to switch it up a little bit, I think, and go to a more security focus, I guess, angle from this. And here's some examples from our NATO legislative advisor on a little bit more about how women, peace, and security and these legal mechanisms work. Over to you, Darto.
Thank you, Kyla, for that introduction. In the company of such esteemed policy and academia counterparts and panelists, allow me to go tactical and practical, not just because of my defense, intel, and law enforcement experience, but also just to diversify the excellent discussion so far and provide some food for thought. The protection of women and children in armed conflicts, whether they're Nyack, Ayak, or whatever type of conflict it is, has to be done both horizontally and vertically. Basically, it's done through 3 stages, just like any military operation would be. First is the preparatory stage, and in that one, we would focus on 4 key prep areas. The first one is obviously training. Any police, military, or other structure needs to be properly trained for the mission that awaits them. This includes implementation of multiple provisions that are embedded in women's security resolutions about preparing the forces, not just the advancing ones, but also the defending ones. We keep forgetting that there's a legal obligation on both sides to provide protection for women and civilians, not just the attacking force. The second one is equipping, equally important and quite relevant, because not all kinetic means are equal. Not all kinetic means are usable in certain environments. Conflicts differ, and conflicts are a variable category. So in that terms, the force going in a peacekeeping mission, going to protect civilians, needs equipment adequate to provide force protection for such civilians in specific environment and situation. Then we reach the topic of vetting. It's actually embedded in one of the Security Council resolutions, and I'm in part involved in that process within the armed forces that I reform. We have some concerning numbers, such as that 20% of candidates for military, police, and intel services show quite poor results on psychological testings. These are very indicative factors of future behavior in stressful situations. These are the people who tomorrow may commit war crimes and conduct activities unbecoming in a mission area. And last but not least, we come to the areas that LEGADS work on mostly, and that's regulating. So you have to anticipate the mission ahead. You have to regulate it, because as a lawyer, no person acts in accordance with the regulation out of the good spirit of their soul, but because they have the regulatory obligation that's enforceable by law and sanctions. So once that prep work is done, then the mission starts, the armed conflict, the engagement starts. And as everybody knows in this line of business, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So basically, you always have to be able to adjust your actions and your strategies. The situation that you might encounter in the field might differ from the one in the previous month. You have to execute that mission. You have to be very clear what your mission and mandate statements are. Security Council resolution has basically a very good provision in it, which says operational commander shall use all necessary means to execute the mission. That's giving the maneuverability to the commander to protect women and children in all sorts of situations. Security Council resolutions and mandates which have limited rules of engagement usually fail to provide adequate protection in the field. Last but not least is report, evidence gathering. Everything you see and encounter should be adequately reported. Evidence should be collected, because that's important for phase 3, which is post festum phase, the phase after the action has happened, after the mission has been completed, because then comes the justice, the truth, the prosecution, the enforcement of what was done inadequately. Seeking justice, seeking truth is an important process that we witnessed this morning at the opening session. Then what comes is modernization. The rules of warfare, the engagements are different now than they were before. So modernization of police, military has to happen continuously to cope with the new challenges. We spoke about the artificial intelligence, we spoke about cyber, drones, and new capabilities. And last but not least is the reform process. Constant evolution of the system, constant upgrades of trainings, of equipping and regulatory frameworks that basically allow us to learn from the previous lessons and adjust to the future, so then what all the senior officials said this morning, never again actually has a better chance of being never again. Lessons that are not learned and implemented are lost in time and basically are failed opportunity to take appropriate reform measures to advance, because the conflicts 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and 50 years ago are not the same. And not two same conflicts are identical. Just look at the currently two active ones. They are quite differential and different in terms of the impact on civilians, in terms of the engagements and the frameworks under which they operate. So thank you once again. Hope I brought an extra vision and extra view on this particular complex topic. Thank you, Kyla, once again.
Thank you. Yes, I think you did provide a really unique and needed perspective as well. And I want to say, I think your point about, yes, it's important to be able to learn from history and apply that, but also it's not the same. You need to be adaptable. You need to be able to anticipate. And in many ways, anticipation, yes, is built from history, built from knowledge, and built from honoring and remembering what has happened. But also a lot of what we understand has been rooted in a lens of looking back through patriarchal norms that are not inclusive. They don't provide a gender perspective. And when we say gendered, as we know, we don't just mean women. We mean a whole of society perspective. And so I appreciate your points there. Okay, now going to maybe a more academic perspective and focus, and look at what, from that end, maybe efforts can be made to educate, to learn from, to strengthen policy and laws. Anna, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you very much. At the beginning, I would like to, I'm very grateful to be here because the topic of our meeting, of our conference, is not only important for many reasons, theoretical, legal, but it's a very touching one. And we are from different backgrounds and we have different experiences. And just to let me, my personal remark, I'm from Gdansk, I work at the university, this is the North Poland. And my family is from Gdansk, so in 1939, at the beginning of the Second World War, my grandfather was enforced to the German army by Germans to fight against his country with a lot of colleagues. He was 14 and some were even younger. He came back when he was 19, and till the end of his days, he was recalling all these 5 years, all in all, again and again. So that was the most important that he kept inside from his life. And after so many work done at the international level, so many conventions, declarations, we still have to talk about that, and we have to do a lot of work because it's not, because it's happening still. But when we come to this legal field, so protection of women and children is not only a humanitarian imperative, but it's also an international and constitutional obligation, and constitutions are serve as a bridge to implement international standards. Just to mention the most important ones, the Geneva Conventions, the 1989 Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination, but also this agenda, WPS. And Constitution on one way guarantees the principles of equality, dignity, and on the other hand, it incorporates these international standards to the national law, so the legislator is obliged to implement them, and usually it is done quite well. But it is not enough to have extensive a good law, and enforcement, as we talked before, is essential, but there's no enforcement without the political will. So this is the most important, because when we look at the situation, even if we have a very good legislative frameworks, there are still a lot of challenges. And in those countries where violations of the rights of women and children are the most severe, they lack democratic, strong state institutions, independent judiciary, effective mechanism for prosecuting perpetrators. So it's very difficult to enforce what is written. Even we have examples of countries that are parties to the main conventions, but they do not ensure the practical application. So, for example, child soldiers continue to be used in many conflicts in states which are part of the Convention of the Rights of the Child, like Congo, Uganda, Yemen, or Myanmar. Yes, so I will focus in the next entry on particular examples how we can develop and implement the standards.
Thank you, Anna. I think your point about it being an obligation and it's not enough to have a law is the crux of this panel, really. It's not enough to have a law if it's not developed with a sustainable mindset. It's not enough to have a law if it's not inclusive of the people that it's impacting. And we know that at the international level, it's so important. The personal is political, the political is personal. There's nothing that can get away from that fact. We're going to go through another round of kind of a shorter, more very specific focus on implementation and truly what the impact of these frameworks and the effectiveness there, including some avenues for increasing effectiveness, increasing positive examples. And I actually think, Anna, maybe we start with you, since you're gonna have you kind of ended on a little bit of a cliffhanger there. So maybe we start with you, Anna, and then Minister, maybe we go to you next, if that's okay. I think that's gonna be a great academic to government level.
Okay. Thank you very much. So maybe because the WPS agenda is the topic and the core of our meeting and our forum, of course, to implement, because this is very general declaration, so we have to implement. And in Poland, for example, like in many countries, we have a national action plan that was adopted within the government by several ministers cooperating. And the plan is to correspond to 4 pillars of the agenda. And for example, in the area of participation, the plan focuses on increasing the involvement of women in the conflict prevention processes and peacekeeping missions. So we have more and more women that take part in it. And the main countries that our women soldiers serve is Lebanon and also Kosovo. So when I went to Mitrovica a few months ago, so they were visible in the streets, yes, when on the bridge. And this is very important, as you mentioned, to provide specialized training on the agenda to the soldiers that cover the topics of gender equality, protection of human rights, recognition of the gender-based violences. But also it's maybe another example in terms of relief and recovery pillar. So Poland provides humanitarian and development aids in Lebanon. We founded humanitarian projects providing Syrian refugees with some health care. And there were also projects in Iraqi Kurdistan, in Tanzania, that was about building women's support center to aim and enhance the social and economic status of young women. That is very important in Senegal and of course Ukraine. When it comes to Ukraine, so that was a very important point of another remark, because it's not only to provide some projects, but it's also to educate people, because it's extremely important to build a social and cultural awareness. So when the conflict in Ukraine, the aggression started, we were the first line to welcome the refugees from Ukraine. And at the very beginning, it was not the state, because the state needed some time to respond with legislation to support women and children from Ukraine, but average people who responded to welcoming them on the board and inviting home. Yes, so I think that this is extremely important, just to make people aware of the problem.
Thank you. I think your point about sometimes it takes a while for laws to catch up or justice to follow, but the people who are going to be working and needing those resources or the support, they're always going to be there, is a really crucial one. Minister, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you about some of the policies for, or practical ways for implementing that Kosovo has done.
Faleminderit edhe një herë. Panelistët adresuan çështje të cilat janë shumë të rëndësishme në raport me temën që po e diskutojmë, por besoj që është po aq e rëndësishme të teksohet që vullneti politik mendoj që është çelësi për me adresu problemet, por po ashtu dhe sfidat të cilat ne mund t'i kemi. Në këtë drejtim, institucionet e Republikës së Kosovës kanë vullnetin që të trajtojnë tema të tilla, të adresojnë mekanizma, ligje, strategji, dhe pastaj pjesa tjetër ndërlidhet me implementimin e këtyre strategjive, ligjeve apo edhe mekanizmave përkatës. Në këtë drejtim, unë e përmenda edhe në fjalën time të parë që bashkëpunimi ndërinstitucional, por po ashtu me shoqërinë civile dhe me organizatat ndërkombëtare është i rëndësishëm. Për shembull, për zbatimin e strategjisë për drejtësinë tranzicionale, ne kemi partner organizatat të shoqërisë civile që na ndihmojnë që rekomandimet që dalin nga strategjia të mos mbetin vetëm në letër, por edhe të zbatohen. Aspekti tjetër është buxhetimi i të gjitha këtyre iniciativave. Pra, nuk mundemi që të miratojmë ligje apo strategji nëse ato nuk e kanë buxhetin e ndarë përkatës. U përmend edhe këtu programet e trajnimit për gjyqtarët, prokurorët, policinë në trajtimin e dhunës me bazë gjinore, por po ashtu edhe me ngritjen e kapaciteteve profesionale për të adresu krimet e luftës, përballja me drejtësinë e kriminalve. Ne kemi shumë të vështirë bashkëpunimin juridik me Serbinë, sepse Serbia që ka bërë krime në Kosovë nuk i dorëzon kriminalët e luftës, prandaj ne kemi qenë të detyruar që të mundsojmë gjykimin në mungesë, në mënyrë që kriminalët të dënohen në Republikën e Kosovës dhe më pas kudo që ata zihen, ta vuajnë dënimin dhe të sjellën Kosovë dhe ta vuajnë dënimin, sepse është e rëndësishme që plagët e luftës asnjëherë nuk shërohen, por të paktën kur e dim që ka emra të përveçëm, të cilët janë të dënuar, atëherë sadopak ato mund të zbuten. Gjithashtu mendoj që është e rëndësishme fushata publike për ndërgjegjësim, pra që synojnë parandalimin e stigmës dhe nxitjen e të mbjetuarve për të kërkuar të drejtat e tyre ligjore, por gjithashtu dhe vlerësimin e legjislacionit ekzistus në mënyrë që në qoftë se ai nuk është i duhuri, atëherë të përshtatet sipas rrethanave dhe sipas nevojave të viktimave. Në këtë tema ne jemi të vetëdijshëm që kemi shumë çështje për të adresuar, por për shkak të kohës që kemi në dispozicion, unë po e ndërpres fjalën time këtu, duke e falenderuar presidenten Osmani që na ka mbledh bashkë këtu në Prishtinë, këtu në Republikën e Kosovës, sepse kemi mundësinë që të shkëmbejmë përvojat, të marrim përvojat e mira, të japim përvojat e mira që i kemi, për shembull Komisioni Qeveritar për njohjen e statusit të viktimave të dhunës seksuale në Kosovë është një shembull që duhet të ndjeket edhe nga vendet tjera, por edhe shumë çështje të tjera. Faleminderit edhe një herë.
Thank you so much, Minister. I very much appreciate your point on the difficulties that you have faced, but also the avenues that Kosovo has developed to overcome them and to truly focus on a survivor-centered approach in your justice system. So I want to recognize that. I think that the point you made about political will is also very important. And since Vera, you actually were the one who spoke about political will as well, I'm wondering if we could maybe go to Vera and then Ambassador and then Darja. We could kind of end there, if that's okay with everybody.
So while we're pushing for more support for the resolution, which asks for punishment and accountability, and it also commends the government of Kosovo on steps that they have taken, and also things that they have to do to move these cases forward. It also makes, on behalf of the United States, it makes these cases something that should be seen as a very important piece of the agenda on women, peace, and security. And when we speak for Kosovo, we also speak for Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East and many others in the world. So we're proud that this resolution in U.S. Congress speaks not only on behalf of the survivors of Kosovo, but all the survivors worldwide. And no project and nothing is small or little. Everything counts. So I deeply encourage people to stick with a cause and do whatever they can, especially here in Kosovo. There's tremendous potential of the youth and the students. And I also wanted to share with you another initiative that we're doing on June 19th at the United Nations. Although that Kosovo is not part of the United Nations, we're holding a round table organized by the mission of the Republic of Albania, which I'm very proud of them initiating this. Also supported by the mission of Ukraine, Congo, and Sudan. We're going to have survivors testify. June 19th marks the day for the elimination of sexual violence in conflict. We're going to have Vaspia Krasniqi-Goodman testify, as well as Dr. Feride Rushiti, as well as other members and survivors from around the world. I think it's important to stand by and pick up every opportunity that we can. And that's why I embrace this forum and salute President Osmani on this initiative, on moving forward this agenda. And you know, as they say, you know, if there's no seat at the table, pick up a folding chair. So that's true for any subject matter, no matter what it is. But advocacy is very important, and we need to push our governments and lobby as much as we can to push this agenda forward.
Thank you so much. I completely agree. We heard earlier that maybe we bring our own chair, maybe we just force our chairs in there. I think sometimes we got to jump on the table as well to make this, happen and get through people. Yeah, that advocacy is so important, so thank you for sharing that. Ambassador, I'd love for you to kind of take us through some of the steps that you and your country are taking to advance this work.
Well, let me start by saying, or by noticing that, of course, we have these very powerful instruments of international law, and of course we have to implement them. But today, unfortunately, in the world, we have so many conflicts with so many new elements that we have to address them. So I would like just to read you out what kind of activities my country has joined in last year. And this is first one. We joined the global initiative to galvanize political commitment to international humanitarian law, launched by the International Committee of Red Cross and other partners, which aims to make international humanitarian law a political priority at the global, regional, and domestic level. This is the first one. And here we are participating in 3 pillars. in protecting civilian infrastructure, second, national committees for international humanitarian law, and new technologies. Then, in April this year, we co-chaired the first consultation of states participating in the work stream protecting civilian infrastructure. States, including ours, recognize the fundamental importance of ensuring the protection of civilians' infrastructure for the civilians and drew attention to the humanitarian, economic, social, and environmental consequences of damaged or destroyed civilian infrastructure. And third, Slovenia, together with the Switzerland and Geneva Water Hub, last year initiated the Global Alliance to Spare Water from Armed Conflicts, which aims to protect civilians, including children and women, and the environment for long-lasting impacts of today urbanized armed conflicts. So these are just initiatives to correct or to add on the existing legislation. And hopefully, you know, in a couple of years, we are going to have not just the resolutions, but binding acts on that. But to conclude my intervention here, let me say that I was very much touched this morning with the honoring the mothers of Srebrenica by the president of Kosovo. This was a reminder that genocide happened in front of our eyes in our TV rooms when we were just comfortably sitting. And that is wrong. And I really want to commend the journalist from Haiti that was here in the previous panel that spoke that we have to show that we care. And we have so many these kind of examples where we have possibility to show that we care. Last month I met in London with Nobel laureate Dr. Mukwege from DRC. And he's a walking testimony of the atrocities, and he is the best advocate not to speak just about ourselves in Europe or somewhere, but also to speak about the countries that are not so often on CNN, BBC, or other elements. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think your points about different avenues for taking this very, very crucial security initiative and elevating it and pushing it through in other partnerships is so well received, and also very needed. Yeah, continue to do that good work. We're counting on you. I'm going to turn now. I think this is a great way to actually sum up a lot of this work. And then, Anna, I know that I turned back to you really quick, so if you want to provide some concluding remarks as well at the end, you're welcome to. But this has been a wonderful panel. I want to turn over to Dario and see if we can hear a little bit more about some practical implementation, adding on to what you already shared before.
Much obliged. The implementation of this legal framework is the key pivotal process, and it's the vertical I spoke about. We covered the horizontal aspect. The vertical means, while it is fantastic and noteworthy to have international conventions and documents, it's the national responsibility to implement them. Nations are sovereign states who enforce laws on their territory. And most of these prosecutions and enforcements will come at a national will. So enforcing it will be primarily their responsibility. It's an important factor to mention in this day and age and world. So, but what international framework offers is an international obligation that's very difficult to dodge. And some of the recent precedents have opened doors. Primarily, the implementation and justice is about proper targeting. what it brought as a novelty is senior targeting, commander-in-chief targeting, because of the three main principles. The first one is the command responsibility. The individual on the ground may have executed this, but you as the commander-in-chief are the one who is ultimately responsible for your forces on the ground. You cannot dodge it by saying it was my second lieutenant who executed this. No, it's your responsibility. The second one is the commander must have known. The commander can never use a legal or policy excuse, I did not know. The commander must know. And third, and last but not least, is the sanctioning. When you learned, it was your responsibility to take sanctions against that individual, against that military police unit who executed these crimes. If you have not, then your responsibility is even higher. That principle of international law brought us to this, brought us to the situation where the leaders are now scared of their own responsibility. That's what's now changing the game scenery in the world, because the leaders know that they are the ones who are ultimately being targeted for legal, political, and international responsibility. This, however, does not excuse the practical executioners on the ground, because every national legislation and every international regulation has a clear provision. Thou shalt not execute illegal order. You're legally entitled as a military commander to refuse your commander-in-chief's order if it's illegal, if it constitutes a criminal offense. These are very important tools in modern day conflicts and operations that politicians and military commanders and troops on the ground have in order to achieve the objective we have on the wall behind us. So the implementation, in my view, is creating a set of circumstances, creating a set of rules that are very difficult to avoid and dodge. And they're increasingly getting difficult to avoid and escape, as the evidence and examples in the world show. We're doing our best as lawyers. As I always said in the previous and every occasion I have, we have to be a category that's adjustable, overcome, adapt, overcome, and adapt. We have to constantly upgrade the framework, because those who commit crimes and criminals constantly adopt their behavior to fit those rules. So we have to be constantly adjusting our tactics, our operations, and our strategies to make sure we provide for a net that's good enough to catch all the perpetrators that ought to be brought to justice. Thank you.
I think that perfectly summed it up. I want to make sure, I know we're at time, but was there anything else any of the panelists wanted to say before we ended? Yeah, okay, Ambassador.
Thank you, dear. You mentioned one topic that I forgot, and that is a very important one. That women, peace and security, it's not a soft security issue. It's a hard security issue. We have here the proof sitting the police officers from Kosovo.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you so much for saying that. And also, I think I would be remiss in saying that I also come from a military family, but my dad always raised me to ensure that when peace and security was integrated into every aspect of what he did and what we do. So I think that it's important to make sure that we take everything from the justice sector to the multilateral, to the academic, to the civil society, to the security and the development sectors, and bring them all together. I want to thank you all for being amazing panelists. I also want to thank you all for staying here. I know that we are a couple minutes over, but I think this was a really good discussion, and I appreciate your time. And once again, thanks to President Osmani and to her team.